My name is Pat Artis, and Monai Village is my dream. My husband Gary and I have been foster parents for almost 35 years in Washoe County. In that time, we've had close to 100 children share our home. The children have been all ages, from as young as 3 to as old as 18, and some were even past 20 when they left us. But that has given us a real up-close and personal experience for what it's like for these children to age out of care, what it's like to live with people you don't know, and all the bonds that are missing that we take for granted. I've wondered a lot about how I even got into foster care. Growing up, there wasn't foster care as we know it today, and I'm pretty certain that on the list of things I wanted to be when I grew up, it wasn't being a foster parent. But somehow that came to be. I was born into a family of pretty well settled parents. My parents were older, but I didn't face any of the uncertainties that life can hold. I had a very stable life. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. I never had to worry about where I was going to sleep, if I was going to have my next meal, if my parents were going to be there, because they always were. And I wondered how someone like me, could then work effectively with kids whose background is so different. And that hasn't really been a problem. People tend to say we're so good for choosing to do this with our life, but we've gotten at least as much, if not more, in return from the children who have shared our home. I didn't know I ever wanted to be a foster parent, but that's who I am and what I've been, and I wouldn't change any of that for anything. We've had a chance to really live what happens when youth turns 17, 18. They're getting ready to graduate if we're lucky. And we've been a part of the process of what comes next for them. And it was so sad to me to go into their planning meetings realizing that they really had no options. Yes, you're going to age out. Yes, if you've graduated, you're done as far as being a child in the foster care system. And where do you go? If you don't have family or friends, where do you go? And sadly, our personal experience mirrors the statistics of 40 to 50% of foster children end up in some kind of relationship with the justice system. After seeing maybe number 5 or 6, maybe even 7 end up in jail, I was like, okay, something has to be done that's different. These are good kids. But they don't know how to do what we're asking them to do, nor do they have anything that makes them look attractive to somebody who's renting an apartment or a house. They have no rental history. Mostly they have no job history. About a year out from aging out, so when they're about 17, the youth start meeting with the group that kind of helps guide them into their choices. One of the choices they can make is to voluntarily remain under the county to transfer the money that would be going to them in a foster care placement to them directly. That isn't enough to get an apartment on, and so what do they end up doing with their $765? Just kind of blowing it. Well, when you're a teen in foster care, for the most part, your worry is, am I going to get kicked out of this home tomorrow? Will I even have a place? Will I finish school? There's just not the stability that you need to think about school, a job, saving money for your rent, your first month's rent, your deposit, your utilities, all those kinds of things. That's not on the radar. The radar is really just surviving and hoping that you don't lose your home, because that happens frequently. I think we tend to take for granted the fact that as we're growing up, everyone has someone that's saying, what would you like to do when you grow up? What is your dream? What would it take for you to do that thing that you want to do? They don't have that. They even worry about, will somebody take my stuff? The little bit of stuff that they have, in this home, will I be safe? That doesn't allow you to plan for your future or dream of your future or come up with a plan that could work. Even though they don't have that, I think at 18 it's not too late to give them a chance to find that dream. I think if there's an affordable place for them to live and they don't have to worry about being on the streets, then we can start to build the other skills that they need in order to be successful. We can help them navigate filling out job applications. We can help them explore, well, what do you really want to do and what's it going to take to get you there? Do you need college? Do you need technical training? Do you need an apprenticeship? To give them a sense of a future instead of a sense of hopelessness is what I really want to achieve at this point. I don't want to see any more of my kids end up in jail, because I know that's not the life they deserve or need. But more importantly, these are the people who will be our future. I want them to have a future worth living for. I want them to believe in the dreams that they have. I want them to see those dreams come true. I'll tell you how it all started. I was driving on the freeway, getting off, and as I came around the corner, or the curve, there was a brand new complex going up, and it said assisted living. And at that moment I was like, why are we building so many assisted living places when we have a whole segment of our population that is suffering because we have no place that they can afford to live in? Why can't we build something like that? And so I started looking into why we are not building something like that. And not one person that I spoke to said, that's really a crazy idea. You just really don't need to be thinking about that. It was like, this is a wonderful idea. How do we make it happen? Once that thought took hold for me, I haven't been able to let it go. And I can't tell you how it's going to happen, but never at any moment in this time has it occurred to me that it won't happen. I know it will. I don't know how. I believe that this is so needed. I can hear the voices who have said, Mom, I don't know how to do this. And I know they don't know how to do this. They are not prepared to do this. I think the time is right when they're 18. Here's what we can offer. Here's what you can do. Here are your responsibilities that go along with that. But if this interests you, we'll help you make it happen. We'll help you be successful. In my big picture, there are individual living spaces for each one of the youth that become part of this program. In my discussions with people, it's like, well, it would be so much easier if you just open a group home. I believe that they spend enough time in group care. It's time to have a place to call their own, to create the home that maybe they hoped they would have, to have a say in what it looks like within reason, and to just know that it's theirs. I see that they will in some way pay a portion to live there. It's not going to be a free ride. I'm hoping that there will be rent payment and individual utilities. And the reason for that is At the end of the time that they're at Monai Village, and I envision that it could be about a 4-year program, but at the end of that time, they will have created a history of rent paid on time, a utility history, so that there aren't huge deposits when they go to get into their next apartment. They can go to the next place they want to go to and say, yes, I've paid my rent, I've paid my utilities, I have this money saved, I can do this. That they'll also have a time to investigate what it is they really wanted to do and how they will support and sustain themselves as working members of society, contributing members of society, and kind of guide them through the process of, how do I connect with the community college or the college? How do I find the training that I want to do? Part of Monai Village also involves a community center. We have these apartments that, in my mind right now, it's a fourplex where there's little four units all around the grounds. But there's a community center where classes can be held for the things that we feel are important for the youth living there to learn, to be a part of, that there would be a place where they would be able to meet together and socialize. And there would also be a place where other agencies in our community could come and let them know about what's available, what's out there, kind of a central location. And there will also be opportunities for employment or volunteer work within the Monai Village complex. One of the requirements when a youth agrees to remain under financial support of the county is they have to attend school, attend some kind of training, vocational training. It doesn't have to just be college. Volunteer, get a job. It seems to us that it would be really easy to get a job, but for some reason for these kids it's not. And so a job might not be something that they can get right away. But within the complex of Monai Village, there will be opportunities for them to fulfill that requirement, so that doesn't become a reason that they become ineligible for the financial support that they can get. And I can even envision at some point that graduates of the program, if I want to call them that, would then mentor the new ones coming in, and that we would really build a network of support among the youth so that they don't feel alone, so that they feel they have that family and community that they've kind of missed out on. Based on some of the principles of Bridges Out of Poverty, it really helps the youth in particular in this instance get some insight into the thought patterns and habits that keep them from being successful. And breaking some of the old ideas about how life needs to be or has to be. And it also gives them an opportunity to develop a relationship with the people that they're working with through this program, so that they do have someone that they can call when life feels like it's falling apart. I think that's really all they need, is someone to believe that there's more than that troubled kid who barely graduated, or the kid that's been in 15 different placements throughout their lives. It's important to understand what keeps you trapped in the old ways of being. And if we can help them recognize where the pitfalls are, then we stand a chance of changing the pattern so that history doesn't repeat itself, where they just go on and have families who are in foster care or in poverty. And we take so many things for granted that these kids don't really have an experience with. Because if we can change some of those beliefs and thoughts that they've held on to, we do stand a chance of having different outcomes. Property, money. I mean, money would solve the whole problem. But I thought about, instead of building the big complex to start out with, it, if we could have property that we could put tiny houses on. If we could even start out with 10 or 12 tiny houses on property, that would be 10 or 12 kids that are on their way to a more productive future, and maybe 10 or 12 kids that are off the street, and maybe 10 or 12 kids that aren't in jail. Then once we have those things up and going, then they're even smaller things that people can do, like these kids who would be moving into the tiny houses or the apartments don't really have the things that make a home. And so I spoke about putting together like new house packages, that maybe a kitchen package that would have the things you need to get your kitchen started, maybe a bedroom package, maybe a bathroom. These kids wouldn't have the resources to go out and buy the pots and pans and that kind of things. I think that society, people in general, have an idea of who a foster child is, especially a teenage foster child. More than anything, I hope that we can redraw that picture, because these kids are worth it. Because there is potential there. They're not wasted time. I think of, in particular for me, some of the young men who I know now, and they are just simply amazing, and I would like them to be seen that way. I would like us to recognize that they are worth our time, they're worth our attention, they're worth our money to help them be all that they can be, that we can give them a future story.